I should be died that morning in Vietnam. But he pulled me from the wrecked teeth on my collar, eyes full of fire. He did not speak my language. Didn't he need to? His name was Boo and he saved my soul. Part 1, I should be died with the others. They said the chopper went down because of engine failure. I never heard the bang. Just the burning. Just the way the sky twisted sideways and the jungle reached up to catch us in green fire. My name is Frank Delaney. I was 22 years old. From Oneonta, Alabama, and that morning in March 1969. I should be died with the rest of them. I remember waking to pain. The kind that rattles inside your bones like shrapnel, even when nothing's bleeding yet. The smell hit first burning oil. Singed canvas. Blood. Then came the silence. The kind of silence you only get after death has passed through. I could not feel my legs. Could he move? Couldn't he speak? But something warm was pressing against my chest. Breathing. Alive. That is when I saw him. A military dog, full-blooded German Shepherd. 5 years old. Sable-coated with one white paw like a smudged glove. Big eyes the color of old whiskey. Ears high. Alert. No fear. He was not barking. Just staring. Waiting. When I tried to speak, he leaned in and licked the dirt from my cheek. I remembered him from the base at Tay-9. He was not supposed to be with us that day, but was part of a scout unit, trained to detect tripwires and ambushes. But somehow, he would ended up on our bird. Maybe an order mix-up. Maybe fate. All I knew was, he was the only soul moving under that twisted metal. The others, Myers, Kelso, Lieutenant Hartley, they were not moving. The tail section was torn off. The door gunner was gone. And the jungle was already swallowing the wreckage whole. Then Bo did something I did not expect. He bit my collar, not hard, just enough to tug, and pulled. 1 inch. Then another. He took everything I had to roll with him. He dragged me out from under the side panel, just before the fire spread to the fuel line. I swear to God, when it blew it lit the sky orange behind us like a funeral pyre. We tumbled down a slope and landed in mud. My shoulder screamed. My boots were gone. But I was breathing. Because of a dog. The next few hours were a blur. But stayed close. Didn't he run? Didn't he sniff or wander? He sat. Ears twitching. Eyes fixed on the treeline like a soldier on watch. I tried the radio. Dead. I had one half-crushed canteen, a bloody handkerchief, and a compass that spun like a drunk. No map. No morphine. And no clue how far we were from base. I watched him for a while, trying to figure him out. He was not friendly, not in a house pet way. He did not wag. Didn't he nuzzle? But he did not leave me. And somehow that meant more. When night fell, it fell hard. No moon. No fire. Just insects screaming and the smell of rot rising from the soil. Bo did not sleep. I saw him move around me in circles. I heard him grow low once. At something I never saw. He came back wet. Like he would been in a creek. Licked the blood off my fingers. I cried like a kid when I thought he was not watching. He curled up at my side just before dawn, his back pressed to mine like a second spine. I slept for 2 hours. Woke to a dead lizard in front of me. His gift? I never ate lizard before Vietnam, but you would be surprised what you will try when the world forgets you exist. Day 2. I tried to walk. My right leg was stiff. maybe fractured, but I managed. Bo did not pull ahead. He waited every 10 feet. He looked back often. He was leading me. Not somewhere exact. Just away from the smoke, toward something that did not feel like death. We found a patch of banana trees, and under them a U.S. supply crate. Half buried, likely dropped and lost months earlier. Inside, water purification tablets, 2 cans of beans, a torn rain poncho, and a picture of a girl taped inside the lid. She looked like someone's sister. Someone's whole world. I kept the picture, not for me, but so she would still exist in someone's pocket. Bo watched me eat without begging. I shared anyway. I started talking. To him. At first, just to hear sound, then because I swear he understood. I told him about the gas station job back in Oneonta, the old Ford truck I never fixed, the girl named Tammy who Dee promised to wait and wrote once, then never again, but did not blink. But he laid his head on my boot when I mentioned her name. That night it rained. Cold rain. Steady. Not violent, the kind that makes you miss home without knowing why. I sat under the poncho, knees to my chest. Bo stayed out in it, so I opened the flap and let him crawl in. He smelled like wet dog and jungle, and yet I slept better that night than I had in months. By morning, I would made peace with the idea that this dog was all I had, and maybe all I needed. Then I heard it, a Lothram. Not thunder. Not monsoon. Helicopter. I scrambled out, waving the poncho. I screamed. I wept. Bo barked the first sound I would heard from him. It was deep. Urgent. He ran ahead through the brush. Tail up, barking like mad. They saw us. They landed. A medical unit. They lifted me in. A nurse wrapped my arm. Someone asked if I was alone. I looked at Bo and said, "Not anymore." In the air, I passed out. But before that, I saw Bo sitting calm near my boots, watching me. His eyes said something I never forgot. "I got you here. That is what matters." Part 2, he wouldn't leave my side. They tried to keep him out of the med tent. Rules. They said, no animals inside sterile zones. But Bo did not follow rules. He followed me, and I was not sterile. I was broken, bleeding, and barely breathing. Bo knew that, so he stayed. The young soldier at the flap tried to block him once. Bo did not growl, did not bite. He just stared. The kind of stare that said, "Move, kid." And the kid moved. They let him curl under the cot, right by my boots. I woke up to pain and metal and white light. If in one arm, cast on the other, my ribs wrapped tight. The first face I saw was Bo's, his head resting on the side of the bed, ears low, tail still, watching, like he was not sure I would made it back whole. I had not, but seeing him there it stitched something together inside me. The field hospital was not much. Canvas walls, buzzing lights, too many moans in the night. They said I had 2 fractured ribs, a hairline break in my tibia, and something wrong with my shoulder they could not fix here. I did not care. I was alive. Bo was alive. That was enough. The nurses grew fond of him quick. Bo did not bark. Didn't he? He would sit quietly in the corner, eyes fixed on my bed. Sometimes, when I moaned in sleep, he would walk over, rest his chin on my chest until I calmed. "Best therapy dog we never trained," one nurse said. Another just called him Sergeant Shadow. He would not eat unless I ate. Wouldn't he drink until I reached for the cup. Once, when they rolled me out for X-rays and left him behind, I heard him yelp just once, then silence. By the time I came back, he would chewed through the leather strap they would tied him with. When I asked him if he regretted it, he laid down and sighed. I swear he smirked. By day 3, they cleared me to walk short distances. I limped across the gravel with Bo beside me. Didn't he need a leash? Didn't he need commands? He moved when I moved, stopped when I did. If I stumbled, he leaned into my hip like a crutch. Old Sergeant Moore passed us once and muttered, "Dog's got more soldier in him than half the men I trained." That week, the war felt far away. There were no gunshots. No jungle. Just the smell of disinfectant and the slow rhythm of healing. But at night, the dreams came. Flames. Screams. The sound of the rotor giving out. I would jolt awake, soaked in sweat. Heart racing. And always Bo was there. Not barking. Not moving. Just present. Like a lighthouse. They gave me the option to fly out. Said I would earned it. Heal up stateside, they told me. Plenty of guys would kill for the ride. But when I asked about Bo, the medic shook his head. Can I stay here? Reassigned or retired in the field? Retired in the field. That was code for put down. If they were wounded or unfit. Bo was not unfit. He was perfect. So I stayed. Signed the paper. Re-upped my tour. Not for patriotism. Not for revenge. For him. They reassigned me to Long Bin Base as a radio runner. Safer work. More routine. I slept in a tin-roofed hut behind the canteen. Bo had his own cot, a crate filled with old blankets, right beside mine. The cooks gave him scraps. The medics slipped him aspirin for his joints. Someone tied a little bandana around his neck one day. Red, white, and blue. He did not mind. He had a scar now, across his flank. Faint, like a line drawn in pencil. I traced it sometimes, wondered how many lives he would saved. How many men never knew it. We were quiet together. Didn't he need much? Just the sound of boots on dirt, the hum of radio static, and the rare breeze that carried the smell of home. One night I sat outside with him, looking at the stars. You ever think about running? I asked. But looked up. Blinked slow. Yeah, I said. Me neither. He started limping on his front leg in late May. The base vet said maybe arthritis, maybe an old wound that never healed right. They offered to take him off duty. I said, give him light work, I told them, or just let him stay by me. So they did. He would follow me from the comms tent to the mess hall, from the chapel to the mail drop. He became part of the base. Soldiers saluted him in jest. Morning, Captain Bo. Some sent photos home with him in the background. Bo became more than a dog. He was a reminder that even in war, there was still loyalty. Still grace. One day a letter came from my sister. Said Mass getting older. Can't keep up the house. Said Tammy, remember her? Was asking if I made it back. I did not write back. Didn't he know how to explain that a dog knew me better than any woman ever had? That I owed my life to a creature who did not speak? Didn't he judge? Just stayed. Who aged fast that summer. The grey crept into his snout, his movements slowed. But he still rose when I stood, still wagged his tail when I limped into view. still rested his head on my chest when nightmares pulled me under. One morning, he did not get up right away, just looked at me with those deep eyes, then laid his head back down. I sat beside him for hours. Didn't he talk? Just held his paw and listened to the silence. Part 3. What the jungle gave and took. The monsoon came early that year. By late June, long been turned into a soup of red clay and sweat. The tent sagged, the boots never dried, and everything smelled mildew and old rain. Bo hated it. He never liked storms. Not the sound, not the pressure in the air, not the way thunder crept across the ground like something alive. But he did not whimper. He did not hide. He just pressed himself closer to me, as if to say, "You okay, okay?" They let me off duty for 3 days. Said I would earn a break. I took Bo and wandered past the outer clearing, toward an old outpost that had been abandoned since Tet. It was not far, maybe half a mile, but it felt like another world. The place was falling apart, vines climbing the sandbags, rust streaks down the tin roof. A field stove still rusted in the corner, like someone had just walked away mid-meal and never came back. I sat on a dry crate and opened a can of peaches I would traded 2 cigarettes for. Bo did not care for fruit, but he sat at my feet, alert as ever. "You ever think this place is haunted?" I asked. Bo tilted his head. I chuckled. "Yeah, me too." I found an old notebook in the back corner, water damaged but still legible. Belonged to a private Sam Kingsley from Oregon, a kid who'd written poems between supply lists. Poems. In one said, "I miss the taste of cinnamon gum, the kind my sister used to sneak from Ma's purse. I miss the way snow hushes a town, and the sound of a door closing behind someone you love." I read it twice. Then I folded the page and slid it into my shirt pocket. Didn't he feel right to leave it there? Rotting? Bo sniffed at the floor, then pawed gently at a corner panel. Beneath it, I found a little stash. A photograph. 2 buttons. A silver ring. Dog tags. The name read Hopkins. I did not know him, but I sat in silence anyway. We sat too, like we were visitors paying respects. We stayed there until dusk. Watched the light fade through a ripped tarp, the jungle humming like a lullaby. I fed Bo some jerky. He did not eat much. He would gotten slower. His left paw trembled sometimes. The vet called it nerve fatigue. I called it age. But he still stood tall when I stood, still waited by the shower tent, still barked once when someone shouted too loud near the barracks. He had pride, like old soldiers do. That night, the rain hit harder than usual. We barely made it back before the sky cracked open. Thunder rolled for hours. I lay on my cot, boots still wet, unable to sleep. Bo paced for a while, then lay down with a heavy groan. I reached over and rested a hand on his side. His ribs lifted, fell, lifted again. "I wish you could talk," I said. He licked my fingers. Good enough. In the early hours, I dreamt of home, of the back porch on summer nights. Frogs singing, the snapping green beans into a bowl. Of me, barefoot and 11, chasing a mutt named Duke around a rusted truck frame. Duke died in '62. Got hit chasing a rabbit across the road. I cried for a week. Swore I would never get another dog. But Bo was not another dog. Bo was a promise that someone still gave her. Damn if I lived or died. 2 days later, we were called to assist a med convoy headed north of Bainhira. Not combat. Not even scouting. Just additional eyes, that is what the captain said. Bo perked up when he saw the jeep. He always liked motion. I lifted him in this time. His hips were not what they used to be. He rested his head on my thigh for the whole ride. The roads were rough puddles, soft red earth giving way under too much weight. Halfway through, we stalled near a flooded pass. While the mechanics checked the engine, I walked Bo down to a quiet stream nearby. He drank slowly, carefully, then stood in the water, letting it cool his legs. That is when I saw it. On the far side of the stream, standing still as stone, was a Vietnamese boy, no more than 12. He had no weapon, no expression, just stared. Bo stiffened but did not growl. The boy stepped forward, slowly, and tossed something into the water around. Yellow fruit. Mango. Then he disappeared into the trees. Bo stared for a moment longer, then sat down in the shallows. Back at camp, no one believed me. Kids that age carry grenades. One sergeant grunted. You were lucky. Maybe. But Bo did not see an enemy. He saw a boy. And somehow, that made me trust the world a little more that day. In July, a letter came from Ma. It was her handwriting, but shaky now. She said the peaches were ripe, and the neighbor soul dog had finally passed. She did not ask if I was safe. She just said, I love you. I hope you are warm. I read it out loud to Bo under the moon. He tilted his head at Peaches. I started thinking about going home. Just a flicker of thought at first, a kind of guilt mixed with hope. I had not let myself want that in months. Could he bear the idea of leaving Bo behind? But the idea would not let go. Then one night, he did not get up when I called. He just laid there, eyes open, tail still. His breathing was shallow, like wind under a closed door. I sat beside him all night, whispered stories he would already heard, held his paw, brushed the dirt from his fur, and I prayed for the first time since Tet. Morning came. He licked my hand once, then rested his head on my lap, and for the first time since I would met him, Bo closed his eyes and did not open them again. I did not cry right away. I sat still, long enough for the sun to rise, long enough for someone to find me. They asked if I wanted help burying him. I shook my head. This was our war. I said, I will finish it. I buried him under the banana tree behind the outpost we would found weeks earlier, wrapped in my old uniform jacket. Laid the photo from Private Kingsley beside him, slid the dog tags from D. Hopkins into the dirt, so he would have company. On the stone, I carved, Loose, Army 1964-1969. He did not run, he did not ask, he just stayed. Part 4, the tag I couldn't let go. I wore his tag around my neck for the rest of the war. Didn't matter that it was not mine. Didn't it matter that they told me to turn it in property of the U.S. Army. They said, property. But was not property, he was a soul. One that stood beside me when half the world ran. So I kept it, tucked behind my own. 2 tags. 2 names. 1 beating heart. The next few weeks passed in a haze. I finished my tour like a ghost filed papers. Ran errands. Signed forms I never read. The war did not end. Not yet. But something in me did. The part that used to care about right and wrong. About medals. About the mission. Now I just counted days, and rubbed the metal tags between my fingers like prayer beads. They offered me early release. Said they were downsizing. That I would served honorably. That my body showed sufficient trauma. I nodded. Didn't even ask where they sent the jacket I would wrap Bo in. Didn't he ask who got his next assignment? Because I knew this. Bo had done his duty. The army never knew what that meant. But I did. I flew home in silence. No cheers. No parades. Just the drone of a military charter plane full of tired boys with empty eyes. Some of them tried to joke. One passed me a cigarette and said, "You bring anything back?" I patted my chest where the tags hung and replied, "Only the one who got me out." He did not ask more. He did not need to. Home was smaller than I remembered. The porch needed paint. The screen door sagged. The trees in the yard were taller than I expected, as if everything had grown while I would stayed still. Ma met me in the doorway. She was thinner, eyes a little clouded, but her hug was firm. "Did you bring pictures?" she asked. Voice shaking. I did not, but I pulled out the folded poem from Private Kingsley. I read it to her in the kitchen while she boiled coffee. She cried at the line about cinnamon gum. The first few weeks back, I could not sleep indoors. Too quiet. Too square. The walls pressed in. So I pitched a canvas tarp in the backyard, OS tags still around my neck. At night, I would lie under the stars and listen for jungle sounds that were not there. But I kept hearing his breath beside me. The rhythm. The steadiness. Even when it was not real. One afternoon, Ma brought me a box from the attic. Said it was old stuff from my boyhood school papers. Comic books. A little red collar with a rusted tag. Duke, my first dog. The one who chased cars and stole sandwiches and barked at the mailman until the end. I held that collar for a long time, then wrapped Bo's tag around it and hung both from the bedpost. The world had moved on while I was gone. Gas prices were up. People were marching in the streets. Some spit when they saw my uniform. At the grocery store, a man behind me muttered, "Another baby killer home for a parade." I turned around and said, "I buried my best friend in the jungle." You want to say that to his face? He did not. I got a job at the feed store, stocking shelves and fixing tractors. It was quiet work. Solitary. But sometimes, I would sneak out back and whistle low, the way I used to for Bo. And I would imagine him trotting around the corner. Ears up, tail wagging once. It never happened. But the whistle stayed with me. Every year on March 12th, the day we crashed, I would take a drive. Not to the cemetery, not to church. To a clearing near the edge of the forest. I would sit under a pine tree and run my fingers over Bo's tag, whispering whatever I could not tell anyone else. Some years, I would bring a biscuit, break it in half, leave one on the grass. No one ever touched it. One spring, about 10 years later, I met someone. Her name was Grace. Widow. Had a way of laughing like it surprised her every time. She worked at the post office and always asked about the tag around my neck. I told her the story on our third coffee. She did not flinch. Didn't he make it awkward? She said, "Sounds like he was a good man." I said, "He was better than most." We married the next fall. Quiet ceremony. Just her daughter, and an old preacher with shaky hands. On the wedding day, I wore a new suit, but inside the jacket pocket Bo's tag. Always. Grace knew. She kissed it once before we walked down the aisle. We got an old beagle a year later. Lazy thing. Slept more than he barked. But every time I whistled, he would lift his head like he recognized something ancient in the sound. I never trained him. Didn't he need to? He never tried to take Bo's place. No one could. When Ma passed, I found a letter in her drawer addressed to me. Inside was a newspaper clipping from 1969, local soldier survives crash. Rescued in jungle, and a note in her handwriting. I knew you came home for a reason. Maybe did too. I still love Bo's tag. Still polish it sometimes. Still feel the weight of it when the wind hits, just right. And when kids ask why I keep 2 tags on my chain, I tell them this. One's mine. The other belongs to the reason I am still here. The part 5, the boy who asked about the dog. The first time my grandson asked about the dog tag, I nearly lied. He had my stubborn bro and his mama's soft voice. Came over most weekends to help Grace in the garden and guard the chickens from shadows that only he could see. That Saturday, he found me on the porch, rocking slow with a cup of black coffee, the metal tags clinking quietly on my chest. Grandpa, he said, squinting up, how come you wear 2 dog tags? I looked down, felt the chill of the metal even in the morning sun. The old instinct rose. Say it was a spare, say you lost one. Say nothing. But I did not. Instead, I patted the chair beside me and said, come sit. I will tell you a story. His eyes lit up. He liked my stories, even the made-up ones about outlaw raccoons and haunted fishing holes. But this one was different. This one was true. It was a long time ago. I began in a place called Vietnam. Have you heard of that? He nodded. It is in Asia. We studied it. Good, I said. Then maybe you know. Sometimes a soldier's best friend was not a person. He tilted his head. A dog. I nodded. His name was Bo. I told it plain. No dramatics. No jungle movie explosions. Just the facts. How the chopper went down. How Bo pulled me out. How he never left my side. How he died under a banana tree with his head in my lap. I did not look at the boy while I talked. My eyes stayed on the fields, on the wind, shifting the tall grass. It was easier that way. When I finished, he was quiet for a long while. Then he asked, did he have a family? That caught me. I would never thought of it. I did not know if Bo had been born on a base, or plucked from a litter, or rescued from a shelter like some of the others. He was just there, already whole. I think, I said slowly, his family was the men he served with. And me, if that counts. The boy nodded like it did. Later that day, I found him in the garage with a pencil and scrap wood. What are you building? I asked. A headstone, he said. For Bo. He did not get one. Right? No lump had risen in my throat like that in years. I helped him sand the edges. That Sunday, we drove out to a quiet patch of trees behind the old church, where the land rolls gentle and the sun breaks soft through the pines. We placed the makeshift stone under an elm tree and carved. Together, Bo U.S. Army. He wasn't human, but he was the best of us. The story did not end there. Kids talk. By the next school week, the teacher called Grace said her grandson had told the class about a soldier dog who saved the war. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my soup. But the teacher was not upset. She wanted to know if I would come talk to the students. A Veterans Day visit, she called it. I had not stepped inside a school since 1972. But for Bo, I went. They were third graders, all eggs and questions and untied shoelaces. I brought the tags in a little velvet pouch, passed them around gently. "This one," I said, pointing to the Shinya tag, "is mine. This one with the scratch on the B belonged to someone braver than me. They asked good questions. Was he scared? Did he bark a lot? Could he do tricks?" I said, smiling, "He did not do tricks. He did miracles." That night, they drew pictures: kids with backpacks, kids with helmets, dogs with capes. One girl gave me a crayon drawing of a soldier kneeling beside a German shepherd under a rainbow. I framed it, hung it beside Bo's tag in my study. A few months later, the local newspaper ran a story, "The War Dog Who Never Got a Funeral." They interviewed me, took a photo on the porch, me holding the tags with the wind in my beard. It made the rounds, a quiet kind of ripple. Then came the email. It was from a retired lieutenant colonel named Davis. Said he would served in Vietnam. Said he remembered a K9 unit in Tay9 remembered a dog with a white paw that saved a recon team back in '69. He would never known what happened to the dog. I called him. We talked for hours. Turns out, Bo had once led them out of a minefield at night, before I ever met him. No one thought we would make it out. Davis said, "But that dog," he did not hesitate. We cried, both of us, quiet tears from men who de-seen too much and lived too long. He asked if I would ever thought of a memorial. I said I would tried, once, but no one listened back then. 2 months later, he called again. This time, he had good news. I found someone at the K9 Veterans Memorial Group. He said, they want to honor Bo. A plaque. His name. Real recognition. My hands shook. Where? Washington. National War Dog Cemetery. You will come. 1TU. I did. Grace pressed a new shirt for me. My grandson helped tie my tie. On the flight, I kept Bo's tag in my pocket, rubbing it like a rosary. At the ceremony, they unveiled a bronze plate. Bo German Shepherd, U.S. Army. Faithful beyond fear, loyal beyond death. And beneath that, in smaller letters, brought home a soldier who never forgot him. People clapped. Cameras clicked. But I did not hear any of it. I just closed my eyes and saw him sitting under that banana tree. Ears perked, waiting for one more command. That night, back at the hotel, I took the tag from my pocket and placed it on the nightstand. I whispered, "You made it. You are here." And for the first time in 50 years, I slept without dreaming. A Part 6, a place in the ground, and in my chest. The next morning, I walked through Arlington with my grandson. It was early, and the grass was still wet from the night's rain. We passed rows and rows of names, some I knew, most I did not. Each stone stood straight, sharp, like soldiers still at attention. But I was not there for them. I was there for the dog with no stone. The War Dog Memorial stood near the edge of Section 60, under the shade of a wide oak. It was quiet there, quieter than anywhere I would ever been in Vietnam. The plaque for Bo was simple, just like him. No rank, no medals, just his name and what he did. My grandson reached out to trace the letters with one small finger. Did he know he was a hero? I swallowed hard. I do not think he cared, I said. He just did not know how to leave someone behind. That night, back at the house, Grace found me in the garage. I was sitting at my workbench, sanding the edges of a wooden box. Not fancy. Just cedar. Soft and warm. She sat beside me without saying a word. Just laid her hand on mine. After a long pause, she said, "You are building him a resting place. Are not you?" I nodded. There was no grave, just that tree, somewhere in Vietnam, and a line I carved with a dull bayonet. But I had the tag. The collar, the poem from Private Kingsley, even the photo of the little girl that Bo had once guarded with his body when a mortar fell too close. Put them all in the box. It was not for the world. It was for me. We buried it in the backyard, beneath the same elm where my grandson and I had placed that first hand-carved marker. This time, we did it right. I wore my uniform jacket, even though it no longer fit right in the shoulders. My grandson read the Kingsley poem, voice shaking at the part about snow. Grace placed a biscuit on the lid before we lowered it. And I added one last thing, a slip of paper. Handwritten. Folded neat. On it, I would written, "You did not speak my language, but you knew my soul. That is more than most men ever do." That night, I dreamed I was back in the jungle. But this time, it was not hot. It was not loud. It was not war. It was quiet. Green. Peaceful. And he was there walking ahead. Glancing back. Ears perked. That white paw glowing like a lantern in the moss. When I woke up, my pillow was damp. I had not cried in my sleep in years. In the weeks that followed, something softened in me. Maybe it was age. Maybe it was that plaque in Bossy. Maybe it was the simple act of being remembered, both me and him. I started walking more. Talking more. Even went to the local high school to speak during Veterans Week. The kids were different now. Gentler? Maybe. Less loud. More curious. They asked me about fear. About friendship. About how a dog could matter so much. I told them the truth. That dog did not care about the war, or the politics, or the speeches. He just knew I was hurt, and he stayed. A girl raised her hand. Would you have done the same for him? I did not answer right away. Then I said, so. One evening, a letter came in the mail from a woman in Oregon. Said her father had served in Vietnam. Said he never talked about it much. But after the article about Bo ran, he told her about a night he would nearly died, and how a dog had led their unit out of an ambush. Stayed with a wounded soldier until help came. He never knew the dog's name. She wrote, but he cried when he saw your photo. Inside the envelope was a photo, faded, grainy, black and white. There was Boo. No mistake. His white paw. His posture. His eyes. And there, beside him, was a young soldier unconscious. Bleeding, cradled in a trench. I held the photo for a long time, traced the edges, then framed it and placed it next to the drawing from that third-grade class. The two hung side by side, one real, one imagined. Both true. It was strange. Watching the world catch up. People started writing more about the war dogs. Books. Documentaries. Monuments in small towns. I was invited to a dedication ceremony in Texas, a statue of a handler kneeling beside his K9. Both eyes focused on something just beyond the frame. They asked me to speak. I told them I was not sure what to say, that I was not a hero, that there was. A man in the front row stood up and said, "You remembered him. That is all the hero he needs." Back home, I went through my old footlocker for the first time in years. Found a crumpled map, my last field ration, and a letter I would never sent. To Tammy. I read it, then folded it again. Slower this time. Not out of regret. Just reverence for a past that was done. Some loves are like that. Some are meant to show us who we are, and then leave us to carry the rest alone. Grace passed quietly on a Sunday morning. I found her in her chair, the garden in full bloom around her, a half-finished scarf in her lap. We would had 27 years together. She never tried to change me, never asked me to forget. She just made room for my ghosts. The house got quieter after that. My grandson moved to California, started a rescue shelter, told me he named one of the dogs Bo. I smiled for a week after that. Most days, I sit on the porch again, coffee in hand, the tags still on my chest. Sometimes I still whistle, not because I think he will come, but because I like the way the air feels when I do, like the space beside me is not empty. Just waiting. Part 7, the whistle that still echoed. I did not know people could hear a whistle that did not come from their own lips. But they can. Sometimes it slips through memory like a breeze through an open screen door, soft. Familiar, not quite real. That is how it felt the first time I heard it echo back. It was late October. The leaves were turning brittle and gold, and the porch boards creaked louder than they used to. I sat in my usual rocker, sipping coffee, wrapped in the brown wool blanket Grace had knitted before her hands gave out. I whistled just one low, drawn-out note. Same one I used in the jungle. Same one Bo always answered with a tail wag or a snort. And this time, I swear to God, I heard it come back. I stood up, slow, walked to the edge of the porch. Nothing but wind and corn stubble, and the last stubborn crickets of fall. But it was there, not sound, something under the sound. Like the memory of sound. Like faith. I did not tell anyone. Not then. Thought maybe my ears were playing tricks, or my heart was digging too far into the past again. But the next morning, I whistled again. And again, it came back. I started doing it daily. At dawn. At dusk. Not out of superstition, just habit. Like checking the mailbox even when you know it is Sunday. One morning, the mail carrier, young guy, name tag said Ellis, lingered by the gate. "You calling for a dog?" he asked. Casual. I smiled. Something like that. He paused, then said, "My dad was in Nam. Never talked about it until recently. Mentioned a dog named. I think." That stopped me cold. "You sure?" He nodded. Said he was not even in your unit. But the dog saved their skin one night in '69. Saw he never forgot. That night, I looked through the names in my old platoon log. Didn't to see Ellis, but I found 5 names that crossed units. I remembered their faces barely, but Bo had remembered their scent. Even across language, even across uniforms, he did not see nations. He saw fear, and walked toward it. A few weeks later, my grandson called. "Grandpa," he said, breathless. "There is a veteran dog memorial opening in Springfield. They want someone to come speak about the bond between handlers and the dogs. I told them about you." I chuckled. I was not even his handler. You were his person, he said. That is more important. Springfield was 3 hours south. I drove myself, took the long way, brought the tags, the Kingsley poem, and a little tin box of dry biscuits I would made the day before. Call it ritual, call it stubbornness. Some things need to be brought along, even when no one else understands. The hall was modest local community center, with folding chairs and coffee in styrofoam cups. But the room was full. Vets, kids, families, people holding framed photos of dogs who deserved beside them. Shepherds, labs, even a mutt or two. I sat in the back, listening. A man told a story about a chocolate lab who laid on top of him for 4 hours while mortars fell. Another spoke of a Belgian Malinois who refused to eat unless his handler did. Every one of them had that same crack in the voice at the end. That same pause where words gave out. When they called my name, I walked up slow. Didn't he bring notes? Didn't he need them? I held Bo's tag in my hand and said, I came home with 2 tags. One on me. The other was for the reason I lived long enough to carry it. The room went quiet. I do not know if he understood what war was. I do not think he cared. He just knew I was hurt, and that staying was the right thing to do. I looked out at the faces. So many tired eyes, so many hands that had once held leashes or rifles or trembling fingers. I never gave him commands, I said. He just stayed. Through fire, through mud, through fear. I did not cry, but I felt everyone else did, and maybe that was enough. After the ceremony, a young woman approached me with a clipboard and a ribbon on her lapel. I am with the National War Dog Archive. She said, we would like to include Bo's story. She handed me a form, a small square box labeled personal artifacts. What would you like us to keep in his name? She asked. I thought about it all that night. The tags? No, they stayed with me. The collar? Already buried. But in the end, I chose a biscuit, wrapped in wax paper, tied with a bit of Grace-soled garden string. He never needed medals. I wrote, just a warm voice, and a biscuit when the day was done. That winter was hard. The snow came early and did not leave. I kept whistling, kept listening. Sometimes I would catch at a flicker, an echo, like breath against glass. It did not matter if it was real. It mattered that it was mine. My grandson visited one weekend, now tall and scruffy, full of city energy and questions. He saw the tags still around my neck and asked, "Don't they get heavy?" I smiled. They are not as heavy as forgetting. He did not say anything after that, just nodded. That night, he brought out a box from his truck, carefully wrapped in brown paper, tied tight. It is from the shelter, he said. We had an artist come by. Thought maybe you would want this. I opened it slowly. Inside was a small bronze statue, maybe 10 inches tall. It was Bo. White paw. Strong build. Ears forward. No collar. No leash. Just him. Just ready. I placed it on the mantel beside Grace's scarf and the framed Kingsley poem. It did not say much. Didn't he need to? It was enough that he stood there, still, watching. Part 8, the day the letter arrived. It came on a Tuesday. Tuesdays are not special. They just show up, like distant cousins you forgot existed. but this one carried a letter. Real envelope. Real stamp. Not a bill. Not a political flyer. Just my name, Frank Delaney, written in block letters. All uppercase. Like someone was not used to writing anymore. I turned it over. No return address. I did not open it right away. I let it sit on the kitchen table while I fixed lunch ham on rye, 1 slice of tomato. No mustard. I kept glancing at it between bites. Something about it made the room feel smaller. The coffee went cold. When I finally slit it open with my old pocket knife, my hands trembled. Inside was a single sheet of lined notebook paper. Folded twice. The kind schoolkids used. Blue ink. Shaky hand. It read, Delaney, you do not know me, but I think we crossed paths once. Or maybe not you, maybe just your dog. I was in Tay 969. My unit took a wrong turn in the dark. Got caught in low fog. We were panicking. Thought we were walking into an ambush. Then a dog appeared. Big German Shepherd. White paw. Didn't he bark? Just stared at me. I swear he looked straight through me. He turned, trotted back into the mist, then turned again like he was saying, follow. So we did. He led us around a hidden ravine, 20 feet from where we would be fallen. When we looked back, he was gone. No handler. No leash. Just a dog that saved 5 men who did not even know his name. Until I saw the article. Until I saw your picture. It was him. Thank you for keeping his memory alive. I never forgot him. Respectfully. Staff Sergeant Paul Reno. Retired. Scottsbluff. Nebraska. I read it twice. Then I laid it on the table and stared out the window until the light changed. Bo had been there. When I did not even know it. When I thought he was only mine. I called my grandson that evening. Read him the letter over the phone. He was quiet for a while. Then said, so he saved more than just you? I said. Voice low. He gave more than just me a second chance. That night, I pulled out a shoebox from the top of my closet. Inside were all the little pieces. I would kept the old photo of the supply crate, the Kingsley poem, a pair of bootlaces, and the biscuit wrapper from the Dicey memorial. I added the letter to it. Then I wrote one of my own. To whomever finds this, if I am not here to tell you in person, know this. He was not a pet. He was not a weapon. He was something better. A witness. A protector. A soul that saw the worst in man and stayed anyway. His name was Boo. He was the best of us. Frank Delaney. The next morning, I drove to the VF Hall for the monthly breakfast. Pancakes. Weak coffee. A lot of backslapping and old stories no one could quite finish. I brought the letter with me. Read it out loud at the table. One man leaned back, cleared his throat, and said, I saw a dog like that once. Near Dang. No handler. Just walking ahead of a patrol, like he belonged. Another nodded. We had one sniff out a tripwire outside Kung Tre. Never found out where he came from. No one claimed credit. No one needed to. It was not about ownership. It was about being remembered. After that, they started calling Bo the Phantom Shepherd. Said maybe he would saved more than any of us ever knew. I did not argue. Truth was. Part of me hoped it was true. that somewhere in the rustling leaves of old battlefields, there is still the echo of paws moving through the brush, still that white mark in the dark. A few weeks later, I got a call from a school in Nebraska. Turns out Paul Reno's granddaughter was doing a class project on war dogs. She wanted to interview me. Just a Zoom call. The teacher said, "She is 12, but she is serious about it." I did not know what a Zoom was, but my grandson helped set it up. The girl's name was Lily. Brown hair. Big glasses. A voice that did not quiver once. "Delaney," she said, "can I ask what made Bo so special?" I looked into the little screen, saw my own eyes looking back older. Smaller, but still sharp. "He stayed," I said. "That is it. That is everything." She asked if she could see the tag. I held it up to the camera. She stared for a long time. Then she said, "He looks like my dog. His name is Shadow." I smiled. That is a good name. Most good things stay close and quiet. Like shadows. She grinned. And for a moment, the war felt very far away. That evening, I walked out behind the house, to the little elm tree. The headstone we would carved years ago was weathered now, moss curling along the edges. I brushed it clean, sat beside it for a long while. Didn't he speak? Didn't he whistle? Just listened. The wind was soft. The air smelled like pine and old soil. Somewhere in the dark, an owl called out, and for a moment, I could almost hear the click of paws on dry leaves. Part 9, one last command. I always thought I would go first. Men like me, we were not built to last. Too much smoke in the lungs. Too much ache in the knees. Too many nights lost somewhere between memory and dream. But my body held on longer than I expected. Longer than Grace. Longer than most of the boys I left behind. Some days that felt like a gift. Other days, it felt like unfinished business. It started with the dreams again. Not the bad ones. Not the screaming or the flames. These were soft. Quiet. I was back in the jungle, but there was no danger. Just green. Thick and endless. And Bo. Walking ahead. Like always. Glancing back to make sure I was still following. He never spoke. Never made a sound. But I knew what he was saying. "Come on, Frank. Just a little further." My grandson came to visit more often that year. He brought groceries. Changed light bulbs. Sat with me on the porch when the air turned too heavy for words. One day he said, "You have been quieter lately." I nodded. Thinking. About what? Following orders. He raised an eyebrow. "Bo's been calling me," I said. "Telling me it is time." He did not laugh. Didn't he say I was crazy? He just reached over, gave my shoulder a squeeze, and said, "Then I hope when you go, you follow him somewhere good." A week later, he brought me a package. Inside was a framed certificate, something official looking, with gold trim and an embossed seal. Beneath the glass was a plaque, "In honor of Bo U.S. Army, awarded posthumously for acts of exceptional bravery and loyalty in Vietnam, 1969. I did not read the rest. Didn't he need to? I just held it, closed my eyes, and whispered, "You finally made rank, old boy." That night, I wrote one last letter, to be opened by my grandson. If you are reading this, it means I have gone ahead. Not far, just enough to see what is waiting. Don't cry for me. I have lived a long, strange, beautiful life. I have seen fire and mercy and silence that spoke louder than bombs. Bury me with the tag. You know the one. And if they do not allow it, just sneak it in. You have got my permission to break a rule or two. Also whistle sometimes. You never know who is still listening. Love you always. Grandpa Frank. The last morning came like any other. Coffee, porch, rocker, the smell of wet grass and soft corn husks on the wind. I whistled once. Didn't wait for the echo. Just smiled. They found me still holding the tag. Fingers curled around it like a promise. I was not cold yet. I was still warm. Still here. The funeral was simple. No military brass bands. No gun salute. Just friends. My grandson. A couple of folks from the shelter. The pastor read Psalm 23, and at the part that says, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Someone in the back whispered, Amen. I would requested a plain pine casket. Inside it, against my chest, they placed Bo's tag. I wore it on a chain until the end. After the service, my grandson stayed behind. He waited until the others were gone, then walked to the little behind the church. The old hand-carved marker was still there, mossy but legible. He knelt, pulled something from his coat pocket, and placed it beneath the roots. It was a new tag. Shiny. Clean. Engraved with Frank Delaney 1947, 2023. He followed when called. They say that is the last command a soldier ever gets. To follow. To move out one final time. I followed. Not because I had to, but because someone I trusted was waiting ahead. Tail wagging. Eyes bright. Walking just a few paces ahead like always. The earth did not shake. The sky did not open. But something did. Something. Small. Something that felt like peace. And if you ever walk near that elm tree, and the wind is right, and you are very quiet, you might hear it. A whistle. Familiar? Not quite wind. Not quite memory. But still there. Still loyal. Still leading the way. But Part 10 reunited at last. It was quiet when I opened my eyes again. Not empty. Not dark. Just still. Like the inside of a church before anyone sits down, or the forest at first light when the sun has not yet decided to rise. I was not cold. I was not afraid. I just was. There was a field, golden and soft, stretching farther than my old eyes had ever seen. No barbed wire, no jungle rot, no smoke in the sky. And there standing in the middle of it was Boo. Not old. Not limping. Not tired. Just whole. His coat gleamed like sun-warmed leather. His ears perked as soon as he saw me. That white paw, the one that led me through hell, still as clear as the day I first noticed it. He did not run. He waited. Like he always did. I took a step. Felt the weight lift off my chest. No aching knees. No cane. No war. Just me. And him. I whistled that low, steady sound I would made 1,000 times before. He wagged his tail once, then trotted forward. We met halfway. He pressed his head into my hand, warm and real and solid, and I laughed, not a young man's laugh, but the kind that has been waiting 50 years to be let out. You found me again, I said. His answer was simple. He stayed. We walked, side by side, through the tall grass. Didn't need to speak. Didn't he need to know where we were going? It was enough to be going together. I saw others in the distance. Figures sitting under trees, laughter drifting on the breeze, and dogs, so many dogs. Every size. Every color. Tails wagging. Tongues out, chasing wind that never tired. Some I recognized, some I did not, but Bo knew them all. Nudged heads. Sniffed greetings, then returned to my side like always, as if to say, these are friends, but you are still mine. We came to a little rise in the land, and from the top I saw a porch. Not mine. Not Alabama, but something like it, wood-worn smooth, a rocker swaying gently with no wind to push it. A place to rest, a place to remember, a place to be. I sat down. Bo curled at my feet, tail flicking once. Then still. I took the tag from around my neck, or maybe it was not there anymore. Maybe I would never needed to carry it here. I set it on the step beside me. It caught the light and shimmered once, then faded into the wood like it had always belonged. Somewhere behind us, a bell rang. Not loud. Not urgent. Just the sound of another soul arriving. And I smiled, because now I understood. This was not the end. It was the reunion. Back on Earth. Under that little elm tree. The wind picked up. My grandson stood beside the grave, hand on the stone, eyes red but proud. He whispered, I hope you made it, Grandpa. I hope he was waiting. Then he reached into his pocket and dropped a single dog biscuit onto the grass. It stayed there for 3 days, untouched. And maybe that is the part no one tells you, that loyalty does not die. It waits. It watches. And when the time comes, it leads you home. So if you ever hear a whistle when you are all alone, and nothing moves, and no one's there, do not be afraid. Just listen, and take a step forward. Someone might be waiting. End of part 10 and of Bo's story. You did not speak my language, but you never left my side.